Can I also acknowledge my wife, who's here without the kids? That's because my son, 4-year-old son, said attending last night's budget was the most boring thing he's ever done. And I think the cameras caught that. Well, ladies and gentlemen, Australia is well on the road to recovery. And while the pandemic is not over, the Australian spirit continues to shine through. Recently, I met with Katie Graham, an owner of a small homeware store and cafe in Melbourne. They'd been in their premises for only 6 months when COVID hit. Suddenly their doors were closed, rent was due, and the staff needed to be paid. They took the difficult decision to stand down a staff member as they contemplated winding up their business. Then JobKeeper and the cash flow boost was announced. They brought back their staff and received temporary rent relief and a deferral on their bank loan with measures that were supported by the Morrison government. I spoke to Katie this week and her business is now back on its feet. She has kept all her staff and taken on a new one who was previously unemployed, and said that without the help of the federal government, her business would have folded and she feared she would have lost her house. This, ladies and gentlemen, is a story like so many others across the country. No community has been untouched. In response to the greatest economic shock since the Great Depression, we have now put in place an unprecedented $291 billion of direct economic support. That's more than double the commitments of all the state and territories combined, all aimed at helping get Australians through to the other side of this crisis. Extraordinary times have called for extraordinary measures. And as John Howard said to me on the eve of the announcement of JobKeeper, during times of economic crisis, there are no ideological constraints. The results are now clear. Our economy is coming back strongly. We have outperformed every major advanced economy in the world over the last 12 months. Consumer confidence is at an 11-year high. Business confidence is at a record high. And almost 1 million jobs have been added since the peak of the crisis. Australia's recovery is at the front of the pack. The economy is now expected to have reached its pre-pandemic level 9 months earlier than was forecast at the October budget. Real GDP is forecast to grow by 5.25% this calendar year, up from 4.25% at budget last year, to be around $50 billion higher across 2021. The unemployment rate is forecast to get back to pre-crisis levels just 2 years after its peak. This compares to 8 years after the recession of the 1990s and 10 years after the recession of the 1990s. It's worth remembering that following the GFC, the unemployment rate never got back to where it was. The unemployment rate is now forecast to reach 4.75% by the June quarter in 2023. With more Australians in work and less on welfare, the budget deficit this year has improved by $52.7 billion. There are good reasons for Australians to be confident about their economic future.